you will need at least 1.5 yards of fabric and some 3/4 inch elastic. So for my waistband, it's going to be the length of however it is from selvage to selvage by 3 inches. I like to cut mine all in one go with the rotary cutter, but of course you can use regular scissors for this. First, I like to clean up the edge because it's probably not that even, so I just clean up the edge. Cut it out. Next, I'm going to cut the length of my skirt. I have everything folded the same. I'm going to use my rotary cutter. You're going to want your skirt to be about 1 inch or so above the knee to below the knee, even longer depending on certain styles. But I am not making a Lolita length today, so if you notice it being shorter, that's why. But don't worry, all the steps are the same. So you're going to just mark the length of your skirt all the way across if you're using scissors, but I'm just going to use my rotary cutter, so I just need to make one quick mark and then line it all up and cut it. And then you're going to cut another piece exactly like this one. Okay, so now you have all your pieces. You have your waistband and your skirt pieces. Now you're going to unfurl your waistband, and then fold it in half lengthwise and iron it. So now that it's ironed, you're going to fold it in half and then either mark or stick a pin right in the middle. I'm just going to cut a little tiny angle out of there. Make sure you don't cut too big of a slice because you don't want to cut into your seam. And then you're going to fold it in half again and mark or use pins so you know where this little point is right here. I went ahead and stuck some pins hopefully so you can see it better, but you're basically splitting up your waistband into 4 parts. Set your waistband aside. Take your 2 skirt pieces and sew them together, right sides facing each other like this. Along here, you can cut this part off or just make sure your seam allowances is wide enough so that once it's sewn, you don't see this funky part of the selvage. So now we just have one long strip of fabric. I'm going to sew my hemline. I like to do that before I attach it to the waistband. Mark 1 inch above the hemline with your ruler. It's okay if you don't have an acrylic ruler, you know, just figure out how to measure it however you need to. Okay, so now that my hem is marked, I'm going to flip my fabric over, fold the hem up to where I made the mark right there along the edge, and then iron it all the way across. I'm just going to go in and fold this edge down. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're not going to really see this part anyway. What's important is how the top stitching looks. So now that you have that ironed down, you're just going to sew the hemline. I like to do 3/8 of an inch seam, but you could even use the width of your pressure foot. Either or will be fine. Also, if you need to, you can just put a couple of pins in along the way just to make sure this doesn't come undone while you're sewing. But I find that it's not necessary. Just, you know, make sure everything is flat and where it needs to be while you're sewing and you should be fine. Now that your skirt is all nice and hemmed, we're going to fold it in half and then fold it in half again. And similar to the waistband, we're going to make some marks. Now there's a seam right here, so you don't need to mark that point. But you will need to mark this part with a couple of pins or your chalk or whatever. You're gonna need some strong thread. I'm using button thread, but any kind of heavy duty thread will work. Take this thread and kind of lay it in the middle of your presser foot. You're gonna set your sewing machine to the widest zigzag stitch that it has, and then kind of zigzag over that thread. You want it to go on, you don't want it to pierce the thread, you want it to go on either side of the thread. Here I'm sewing with the fabric just against the edge of the presser foot so it stays within my 1/2 inch seam allowance. So here I have my skirt and my waistband, and if you remember those marks that we made earlier, we're going to kind of line those up. Find the middle mark here and line it up with the middle mark of the waistband. I'm going to flip it down with the raw edges together here at the top. Depending on the pattern, you might want to make sure the pattern is going in the right direction once you flip it up. So maybe I'll turn it around this way and then flip it up and then see how the pattern's right side up. But it's an elastic waistband, so it probably doesn't matter that much if the pattern's upside down or not on the waistband. So we pin there, and then we find the other marks, and line those up, and we pin there, and we take the ends and line those up and pin. Get the other side here. Take that thick thread that you used before, that you laid in the middle of your stitching, and pull it to gather up the skirt. So when I gather, I kind of gather this section that's next to the middle point, then this section, then I go and pull the other side of the string and then gather this section that's next to the middle, and then this section. I hope that makes sense, but basically, you know, you want to gather it all so that everything lines up at the waistband. Now that you have your skirt pinned to your waistband all nicely, you're gonna sew across here using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, so if you're making a Lolita skirt, you're gonna want your elastic to be 1 to 4 inches shorter than whatever your waist measurement is. If it's a different skirt, if it sits somewhere else, you want it to be 1 to 4 inches shorter than whatever measurement you're going off, wherever it's going to sit on your waist. Attach a large safety pin to the end of your elastic and insert it into the waistband. So when your elastic kind of gets to the edge right here, I like to pin it in place and then keep on working it through till you get to the other side. And now that I have the elastic to the other side, I'm going to go ahead and pin that in place as well. Take out the safety pin. So now that you have your elastic end, you're going to sew this other side seam together with the right sides of the fabric facing together. And then you're just going to sew down this side seam. Make sure your seam allowance is wide enough so that you don't see this white part on the outside. And then make sure to go back and forth a couple of times over the elastic. Flip it right side out and you're done. If you would like to win this skirt and matching head bow, please leave a comment below and check out the description box for more info. Till next time, bye!